Hello and welcome to a live Kerfefe Break on Deprogram with Carrie Smith. Today is Monday, July 18th. And if it's your first time here, this is a live show we do on the channel Mondays and Fridays where we just hang out with friends, talk about what's going on in the world, talk about what's happening in our life, and just enjoy our time together. I will let you know, I saw you in the chat talking about us being late. And there is a siren that goes off in my town every day right when my podcast starts. So I use that as a convenient excuse to start a few minutes late. I'll have you know so you don't have to hear it. Anyway, I'm just joking with you. My guests today are Daniel and Brently from Dangerous Rhetoric. I'm trying to add them to the screen. What's happening? Let's see. There you are. Hello, guys.
There we are.
Hey.
Hi. Hey.
I'm excited to see you guys again.
Hey, we missed you.
Yeah, no,
I missed you.
I heard you guys on your, I think it was last Friday, you guys were talking and Mikey brought up Kevin Spacey. And so that's why I was like, oh, we need to talk about Kevin Spacey.
We need to talk about Kevin.
That's a movie, right? Yeah.
It's a book too. Yeah, I haven't read the book, but that's actually a really good film. We recommend people watch that. It's also really interesting now to look at in retrospect of all the stuff that's happened with Ezra Miller since then, because he played the lead role in that of the psychopathic son. So,
I didn't realize that was Ezra Miller. Yeah, I saw that movie. There's something. It's about a little boy who, a bad seed, as you call it, a kid who just is bad from birth, like psychopath.
And that's something that I feel like isn't like talked about enough. And what's interesting too, and I want to bring this up because my grandma has sort of discussed this with me before, having, kids with disabilities and like mental disabilities. Like her oldest son had schizophrenia. And one of the things that, parents contend with when you deal with like something like that, like some kind of character disturbance or mental disorder that your kid has, is you ask yourself, like, is it me? Did I do this? Is it my fault that they turned out this way? And I think it's an important question to ask when it comes to the question of evil and psychopaths and that sort of thing, because it isn't always. And, I recommend people read Without Conscience by Robert Hare, because Robert Hare looked at this question too, like, are psychopaths made or born? And we don't quite know. We know that the environment can determine the type you get. So like how violent they are or manipulative as opposed to how charming.
Yeah.
But we don't actually know what's causing it, because there are circumstances where they analyze, like, the parents do everything, right? They do everything right and they're present there, but there's something preventing that parent-child bond from like taking place at a very young age. And there are signs of that you can find in young children. So that movie is a good example of it.
There's a great documentary. I definitely want to read that book. There's a great documentary on YouTube for free that you can watch called Child of Rage. It's an old documentary, and it follows a little girl who,
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's sort of one of these bad seed things where she torments her brother. Her parents have to lock her in her room at night because they're afraid she's going to kill her infant brother or them. And she's very candid on camera about her dark desires. And I'm talking, I think she's maybe 7. I mean, she's very young. And I haven't watched that one in a while, but I remember that's a good one in this sort of same
it's so crazy though,
same area.
Because like, man, it's like what does cause that? You do have to ask, and to see that sort of thing manifest in a child too is like a particularly difficult thing to contend with.
Yes,
and there's a lot of taboos too when it comes to like diagnosing people,
children,
with stuff like psychopathy.
Like, do you lock them into it, right? And then
is it a self-fulfilling prophecy if you do that? But at the same time, it's like there are still signs and symptoms you can see very young when, clearly there's something not right there, where the kid is lacking like the full conscience. They'll torture animals and do things like that, like just very early signs.
Yeah. I didn't do my announcements. I'll do them right quick. Hello, Adam. Adam says we need to talk about smashing that like button. Thank you. I'm going to use that as an opportunity to say, please like and subscribe. If it's your first time here, we would appreciate a subscription. Sometimes you get unsubscribed, so just see if you're still subscribed on YouTube. And if you want to support what I do on financially, you can do it on Subscribestar, Locals, or Patreon. And we will be adding $1 a month option. I know a couple of people have asked, and I just haven't had time to set it up, but we will be doing that. We had a book club yesterday. Adam was there, and we've decided, for now anyway, we're making the book club subscriber only just because we want to have something extra that you get if you can financially contribute. That's like a perk. That's a reward for that. And yesterday we did this one on Zoom. It's called The Real Anthony Fauci. We're not going to be putting it on YouTube because we know we'll get a strike. And in the very contents of this book, it talks about how, all these different doctors. It's just about the past 2 years and all the colossal mistakes that were made at the direction of Anthony Fauci and a lot of times Bill Gates. And it's full of scientific studies, references. It's by Robert Kennedy Jr. And I can't recommend it enough. It's like a basically encyclopedia of everything that unfolded the past 2 years.
Gotta check that out.
Yeah, you have to. It's so and there's so much stuff that happened that we forgot. Like I forgot some of these things. I'm like, that's right, they did do that. It's a
lot of shit though.
Yes.
Look, so many things transpired in the last 2 years that it's very easy to get lost in the miasma of like what happened. Like I'm still like kind of a little shell shocked, and it's like I'm still getting over it, and I'm sure most people are,
Yeah, it's so much to process, and it's so when it's put all in one book like that, so solid. He also goes into the history of what Fauci did mismanaging the AIDS crisis and also pushing drugs for big pharma back then, AZT, and same thing he did with COVID, which is to try and deny people the ability to get cheap, affordable therapeutics to actually treat the disease.
We talked about that on our show before, actually, with Wana Trian. I don't know if anyone follows her. Go check out.
I love Wana.
We chatted about that very in depth, and this was actually a really big observation she made, as someone who knew a lot of gay men growing up on Fire Island and stuff and seeing the effects of the AIDS crisis. But she started to see the parallels and it like freaked her out. We talked about like Larry Kramer, and he was a big activist back then, and he was calling out Fauci back then as well.
He called him out. And Fauci, what Fauci did is when he tried to do his, when you remake yourself, and he tried to remake himself, and he went out and purposely befriended Larry Kramer. Years later, he rebranded. Yes.
And then Kerry Mullis, who invented the PCR test, who died in 2019, right before all this happened. So who knows what he would have said about how this was handled. But he was also very critical of Fauci, and he thought the guy was a crook. He was saying this in the 90s.
Yeah. Well, there's stuff in there about them testing. I can never pronounce it, but the one drug that they were pushing, remdesivir, about how they were pushing that in Africa. They were trying to find something they could use it for, and they were testing it on people with Ebola, and they had to stop because it killed like a third of those people. Jesus. And then they still knowing that. That's why today, talking about psychopaths and stuff, I think he qualifies. The fact that he would bring that drug here then and say, oh, well, let's use it for this other thing then, and just completely ignore the science of what that drug was doing to people.
Yeah, if anything qualifies, it's that.
Yeah.
It's a very conscience-less type of thing to do.
We may have avoided a strike by doing book club on Zoom, and we will be releasing it on Locals, by the way. But we may get one today just by me saying that. So
we'll see. Hopefully not.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, good.
I don't think you've been safe. So I'm kind of like monitoring Daniel because he's got a
Sorry.
You're fine.
I got loose lips. But I want to check that book out, man. And Robert Kennedy is one of the people we would love to talk to on the show as well. That would be really fun to have a conversation with him.
He's so busy.
Pick his brain. Yeah, I'm sure he's busy as hell. But man, he's been such a voice of reason in all of this shit. And frankly, I think his father would be proud of him, and I'm sure his uncle would be proud of him too. So
yeah, he's faced, and a lot of the doctors he covers in here just face absolute character assassination, defamation, censorship, and these are all esteemed doctors with amazing qualifications, and who just to try, and the way that they're able to try and ruin people like that, no matter where they're coming from. Even someone like Robert F. Kennedy try to ruin him. It's like he was put on some most dangerous person list.
Crazy.
Because his book is a New York Times bestseller, it was selling off the shelves, and with nothing but attacks against
People want answers. People want answers. After all of this shit that we've been through, I think, I'm not surprised that all that book is flying off the shelves, because I think over time more people have kind of woken up and realized, like, oh, I got played. What just happened over the last 2 years? Why is everything going to shit? Like, is it really what they said it was? People want answers.
Yeah. What else was I going to say? Oh, this is just a personal note before we get started with the topics. I'm in a good mood today, and I just wanted to share this with you. Everything's going to be okay, guys.
So it's been a weird time.
It's going to be okay. Everybody's got their own trials and things they're going through. I just had coffee with a friend 2 days ago who's going through some crazy, horrible, traumatic stuff. I know people going through all different kinds of traumatic things, and I'm going through my own version of that, or have been for a couple years.
Same.
I have some friends who are, and it's going to be okay. It's fine. Look, and some of this stems from my faith. So if you don't believe in God, maybe you'll just not. Even if you don't believe in God, I'm here to tell you, I do, and you're fine, and God's got this. I know it's cheesy, but it's true.
You know what, though? I needed to hear it. So even if other people didn't need to hear it, I needed to hear it. So I appreciate you saying it.
It's going to be fine. Okay. That's all. My husband was gone for 4 or 5 days. He just got home yesterday in time to do book club with us, and it was like, he's back home. I'm happy. We got these car problems, whatever. Also, so it doesn't matter. It's everything's good.
The little things, man.
Hey, by the way, before we start, you guys, Daniel and Brently, people can follow you at Dangerous Rhetoric.
Yes.
Here on YouTube, they can check out your website. And Amy's here today. Hello, Amy. Maybe she can drop your links in the chat.
She already did.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And you guys were one of many people, in addition to Professor Michael Rechtenwald and my friend Nina Infinity, who suggested that I read this book. In fact, you gave me a copy of this book, Political Ponerology. I have a feeling we're going to do this one next. I've got a few suggestions from people, but I want to read this so badly. I think it's called The Science of Evil, Psychopathy, and the Origins of Totalitarianism. And it's just right at my alley. So I think we probably might do this one next.
So if anyone is interested in knowing a little more about that book and the story of it and what it's about, go on our channel and check out our episode with Harrison Cayley. He's the editor of the book, which was published under Red Pill Press, and we had a long discussion about it and what exactly it's about. So check that out. It might intrigue your interest a little more and make you actually want to pick it up and read it, because we think it's important for sure. That's why we keep recommending it. We brought a bunch of copies of it to the Better Discourse Conference in Texas, and we handed some of them out over there as well, because we just think it's a subject that's not looked at in this way, evil that is, in a more categorical, organized, scientific way, and not just simply leaving the problem up to theology, right, and philosophy, which are perfectly valid ways to also approach the problem. But Lobachevsky, what he argues in the book is that perhaps we're limiting our understanding by only looking at evil simply through that lens, and not trying to approach it in, say, a more categorical, scientific manner, right? Looking at the brain, looking at brain chemistry, looking at trauma, and those sorts of things.
I just dropped a link in the chat for anybody who wants to watch. Go bookmark that episode or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good episode. We talk about all the cluster B stuff too in general, that Josh Slocum typically talks about on his show Disaffected as well.
Oh, it's funny. I don't see the link in there. Did you put it in the right place?
I dropped it in the YouTube chat.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's not showing up for me yet, but that's okay.
It may just take a second
in the
or
general
something. I think it's
Big Raj. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for the super chat, the sticker.
Aww.
And who else? Oh, JS Payne is here. Late in grooming. I assume you mean your hair.
Oh, I thought you meant the dog.
The dog.
What kind of grooming, sir? That's a hard drive.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Okay, so as you mentioned, on our Friday episode, I was talking with Tracy from Keto and Crime and Mike Harlow, and Kevin Spacey came up. We were talking about what had happened with him, with all the different accusers, and I knew that one of his accusers had passed away, had died, but I didn't realize 3 of them had died.
There's a body count now, man. It's like, you know how they have the Clinton body count? There's a Spacey body count now too, it seems.
Yeah, and we played a little clip of a video. I don't know if you remember this video, but it was where Kevin Spacey was on the phone with Hillary Clinton. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yes.
It's kind of suspicious. I'm just saying. No.
Getting ideas from each other.
He's got those really, he did those really strange videos where he was like pretending to be his character from House of Cards.
Yes.
And you watch those, you just go back and look through them. Like, it's very off-putting. Very, you could write it off as maybe like a tongue-in-cheek joke, but when you start to look into the history and all the backstory and all these other people that have passed away after accusing him of some impropriety, it just reads a little bit more disturbing and shady and not quite tongue-in-cheek jokey.
I think it's more like he showed his true self in videos like that, and it makes you wonder too. I don't know if people who've seen House of Cards, but man, he's so good at being a psychopath in that you have to sort of wonder, like, is this just like how you are? So it just comes so natural to you that's why you're so good at like playing this character. And it's not just that, like American Beauty, other like movies that he's done playing a pathological person.
Well, he wasn't like pathological in American Beauty, but Usual Suspects. Seven. Movie about the 7 deadly sins.
Well, I've got this article pulled up that you sent me, so I'm just going to read some of this, and especially for people who are just listening. The headline is Linda Culkin, John Doe, Ari Bain, 3 of Kevin Spacey's accusers have died this year. This is from 2019. I don't know how I missed this.
Brent and I talked about it. I remember this. It's weird too. It's just too much of a coincidence. You have to ask like at least some questions, like what's going on here.
There is a trigger warning on this article because it deals with suicide and sexual assault. Okay. Ari Bain, a former Norwegian royal who accused actor Kevin Spacey of sexual assault in 2017, has died by suicide, aged 47, just hours after Spacey shared a bizarre video on social media. In 2017, Bain accused Spacey 60 of groping him under the table at a Nobel Peace Prize concert in Oslo a decade earlier. He is the 3rd Kevin Spacey accuser to die in 2019. Bain, who was born in Denmark, was married to Martha Louise, the oldest daughter of Norway's King Harald V and Queen Sonja, for 14 years. The couple divorced in 2017 and have 3 daughters. In a statement, Norway's King Harald said Bain was an important part of our family for many years, and we carry warm and good memories of him with us. And then it goes into the details of the accusation. It says, during a radio interview in 2017, Bain claimed that Spacey groped him under a table during a banquet in 2007, just after he and actress Uma Thurman had finished hosting a Nobel Peace Prize concert. He and Spacey were seated next to each other when the alleged incident occurred. Quote, "We had a nice conversation," Bain said. After 5 minutes, he said, "Hey, let's go out and have a cigarette." Then he puts his hand under the table and grabs me by the balls.
Ew.
Bain, who was married to the princess at the time, said he was so taken back that his only response was, maybe later. Then they talk a little about his creepy video. And just quickly, I do want to hit these 2. 2 other Spacey accusers have died. John Doe, another Spacey's accusers, an anonymous massage therapist, died in September, just 1 month before his lawsuit against the actor was set to go to trial. The alleged victim, known only as John Doe, filed the lawsuit against Spacey in Los Angeles Superior Court in September 2018. The Hollywood Reporter has said Doe claimed he was hired to give Spacey a massage at his home in Malibu in October 2016. After being greeted by the actor, Doe alleged that he was led to an upstairs bedroom where Spacey locked the door behind them. The actor allegedly told the masseur he was having some discomfort in his groin and laid down on the table facing up. The complainant alleged that Spacey forced his hand to his testicles. Doe claimed he jumped back in shock, and the actor then complimented his eyes, tried to kiss him, and offered him oral sex. He said he asked Spacey to let him leave multiple times before the actor stopped blocking his way. In September, just a month after the sides agreeing to proceedings, which likely would have meant a 7 to 11-day trial, the masseur's attorney informed Spacey that his client had, quote, recently passed. As the trial relied on testimony the charges were dropped.
That's
Wow.
yeah. I mean, come on, man.
And I found elsewhere that he died of cancer.
Is that what they said?
That's the
Claim.
story.
I mean, look, it is possible. It's weird things like that happen. But I think just when you have this many weird things, it makes sense to ask some questions. I think
Just ask questions. Yes,
it's unreasonable to try to look at the patterns here and be like, all right, this is a little unusual. It's kind of a weird coincidence to have this many people kind of die like that right before something big like that's supposed to break. I don't know.
Yes. Okay, and then this is the third one. Linda Culkin. Linda Culkin died after being struck by a car in Quincy, Massachusetts. No charges were filed against the driver, who remained at the scene. Culkin, a former nursing assistant who was 59 when she died, was the first to accuse Spacey of misconduct against young men. She began cyber stalking the actor in 2009 after one of her patients accused Spacey of attacking him. In 2014, she was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison for sending him and his associates death and bomb threats. Well, she sounds unstable herself.
Yeah,
yes,
for real.
she's clearly unstable.
Not that doesn't mean that the allegations against him aren't true.
Yeah,
it just means
for sure.
sometimes unstable people also attract unstable people. Criminal charges dropped. And then in 2018, Spacey was charged with battery and indecent assault for allegedly grabbing an 18-year-old man at a Nantucket bar in 2016. The accuser told police he was working as a busboy at the restaurant when he started drinking with Spacey one night in July of 2016. After both men had several drinks, the young man claimed Spacey put his hand on his thigh, unzipped his pants, and rubbed his penis for about 3 minutes, according to the court documents seen by the New York Times. The young man said, according to a police report, that Spacey was trying to take him home, but he escaped after telling a woman he thought Spacey was attempting to rape him. The lawsuit was dropped, quote, with prejudice in July, meaning it will not be refiled. It is not known if a settlement was reached. And then other accusations. In October 2017, Rent actor Anthony Rapp accused Spacey of making a sexual advance towards him back in 1986 when Rapp was 14 years old. In response, Spacey said he, quote, has a lot of respect and admiration for Rapp and that he did not recall the incident the Broadway star described. Quote, if I did behave as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I'm sorry for the feelings he describes having carried with him all these years. Following Rapp coming forward, a slew of other men, including Harry Dreyfuss, the son of actor Richard Dreyfuss, made their own accusations against the actor. Dreyfuss wrote that Spacey fondled him when he was 18, despite his obvious discomfort and indication that the touching should stop. More than 20 additional allegations were also connected with Spacey's time as artistic director at the Old Vic Theatre in London. 6 allegations of sexual assault by 6 different men, ranging from 1996 to 2013, have been lodged against Spacey at Scotland Yard in the UK. Variety reported that Spacey was interviewed by police about these charges in May. No charges have been laid. Of course, this is from 2019, this article. But thanks for letting me read through that, just to remind people.
You know what's crazy though? When all this broke, Spacey used it as an occasion to then like come out. Yes. And he used that coming out as a way to kind of just excuse his behavior and like just, I don't know, sweep it all under the rug. Oh, it's just, I was in the closet and I'm a gay man and look at me, I'm so oppressed or something. And man, it's not a good fucking look for us.
Well, he's Mike and I talked about this. People will try. Okay, so if they're accused of groping and sexual harassment and so, like a Harvey Weinstein, they can't fall back on that sort of. But I'm a member of a protected class. But that's what Spacey did. If it's gay harassment, then they can come forward, and it's so gross because then they actually use the fact that it was gay harassment to try and cover up the fact that it was harassment and it was inappropriate. But put forward just kind of closet in this sort of, they mask it in this sort of, I'm coming out, I do have something to confess. I'm gay. And then it's like, what does that have to do with the sexual assault?
It doesn't. No, if anything, it revives that stereotype that gay men are all predators, and it's like it made us just look bad.
Yes. It's not, and the ones who can't fall back on that, like Harvey Weinstein. Do you guys remember his first sort of non-apology letter that was an apology letter statement? Do you remember that?
No.
So I do, because I was fascinated by what he was trying to do in that he couldn't say, "Hey guys, it's time for me to live authentically as myself. I'm gay." Because it was all women he was assaulting or at least coercing to have sex with him. So what he said instead was he still tried to cover it up with something, and what he tried to do was remind people of what political tribe he was in, and he was like, "I'm sorry, but I really oppose guns, and I'm really for stricter gun control, and I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life and fortune and career to getting the NRA, out of politics and
Like, what
doing
does that have
something." I know.
Classic deflection.
That was in his apology. It was like, what are you talking about? Who cares about your gun control stance?
So dumb.
Like, yeah,
What a weirdo.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's Anthony Rapp was the first person who came forward. So
Okay.
he was 14 at the time. I think it was like 1986 when his assault, I guess you could call it, went down. He was at a party. Now, this is what he alleges. He was at a party at Kevin Spacey's apartment in New York, and they they was the youngest person there, and as the party sort of started to wind down, it sort of ended up being just like he ended up alone with Kevin in his bedroom, and Kevin sort of like drunkenly picked him up and like threw him on the bed and then like laid on top of him, and then eventually he was able to like wiggle free and leave. And that was what. Oh, and he also said that earlier in the evening that Kevin Spacey had grabbed his behind, given him a right proper squeeze. So those were the early allegations. And then
And
after,
how old was he?
14, he's
Wow.
in 1986. Yeah, and I think Spacey was 26 at the time. So he himself was a young man, but still, like, it's not.
Yeah,
that's a big age range there.
There is a big age range there.
And then on top of that, it was so then after he came out, it was like the floodgates hath opened. And because of the nature of the Me Too movement, all of a sudden there were all these men saying Me Too, Me Too, Me Too. And before you knew it, he lost his deal with House of Cards. He just recently lost another movie like 2 days ago, something called 1242, which I think was about Mongolia and Genghis Khan. That he was set to star in, and I guess the publicity around his UK. He was also recently, the same day he was in the UK, he has, for those 6 charges against him from, I think it's 6 different men, he pleaded not guilty to each charge, and they've set the date for, I think it's June 2023. So we're going to have to wait a good long year before that trial comes around. But that's in the UK. And then there's his trial with Anthony Rapp is still in process too here in the United States. So he's got the UK trial going on. He's got a US trial going on. 3 of his accusers have been killed. It's just so bizarre.
Or died. You should say they died.
Yeah, they passed away mysteriously and suddenly. Because the cancer death I thought was interesting too, because that was another young man. So, cancer is not exactly a young man's disease. So that just kind of, I don't know, tickled me funny. But
It's so weird. It's just, what are the chances that many? I don't know. This should be this will be a good episode for people to clip out of context and be like, look at what a conspiracy theorist Carrie
I was
is.
just thinking that. I'm like, Carrie needs a tinfoil Stetson.
A tinfoil Stetson, yeah.
You need to get a Stetson, and you just got to wrap it in tinfoil. And then every time we have conversations like this,
Like
you
this.
take that one off, and you just put the tinfoil Stetson on.
Boom.
And you're like, all right.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's 5 charges.
5 charges.
In the UK.
Okay.
And it's
Off by
4
one.
counts of S assault and 1 count of, I don't know what this is, in causing a person to engage in penetrative S activity without consent. I don't know. How do you cause somebody to engage in? That's weird. I don't know.
I mean, okay.
I don't even know, but that's the charge.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
And they said it took place between 2005 and 2008. And 1 was in Western England in April of 2013. Victims are in the 30s and 40s. He strenuously denies all the charges.
Well, of course he does. Of course he does.
Oh,
He, I just want to show you. So he did do these disturbing videos.
The ones by the fireplace.
kill him
Yes.
with kindness.
Yeah, those
Yes.
So, man, I remember when those came out, I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what are you implying here?
I mean, if we want to pontificate that he may be a probable psychopath,
Yeah.
this is something a psychopath would do.
Yeah.
It would be to put this snarky sort of little like, look what I did, and you can't touch me. Nah, 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 nah. Like that's the kind of thing
Duping
that
delight.
they would put out
Yes,
there.
that's exactly what it struck me as. He is pretending to be his character from House of Cards.
Yes.
So that he can actually admit things kind of in a smirking way about what he's done.
I don't think he's pretending. I think he's admitting to you, I am this character. Like, this is who I actually am.
Well, he wants to be that guy.
Yes, and you can't do anything about it. Like, this is who I really am on the inside.
Whoa. There's a lot of deal about it.
Do you guys ever watch? I like to watch some of the body language channels.
Oh, I love her.
Body language Ghost. Okay, I'm gonna put this on the screen for anybody who's not familiar.
Do a Kevin Spacey.
She did do one of him in the courtroom, and just let me play a little bit of this one. I'm not sure which part we're at, but I think we're right before she analyzes his smile. It's almost like he realizes the cameras are on, and then he puts his mask back on.
Like he pulls an Amber Heard.
Yes.
Being removed from the courtroom. So, by all means, sit in your do not interrupt these proceedings. And with respect to the press, we have the pool cameras up here, and other members of the press.
You just saw it. Like, go back. You just did it.
Observe, but do not interrupt these proceedings. And with respect to the press, we have the pool cameras up here, and other members of the press. If you have your.
So there you saw it was falling. He's keeping it pretty good because it's not actually completely falling. And then he's able to redirect attention, looks over to where the judge is talking about as if he actually really needed to. It's just a distraction technique. And I mean that in the sense for as much as he moved. Looking over, yes. But to move that much is just a distraction technique. It allows him, though, to give the excuse to open the eyes wider with his eyebrows because that muscle's getting tired.
Laptops or your telephones, you can communicate with them. And
yeah, so in this video, she's talking about how he's how it's straining him. His muscles are strained because he is doing, and if you watch the whole thing, I think she's right. He's sort of got this mask of I'm not bothered on the whole time, but he's having to fake it because he's upset. And so he's sort of like and then she's watching him and it starts to fall like
he's getting tired.
And then he'll put it back on like, this is cool. Everything's cool.
Oh, Kevin. Tisk. And it is truism that in the gay community, there are certain spaces that are lower in consent. And there, as it is with men, there is a lower standard of consent. And there is sort of an expectation of active denial if you're not sort of interested in what's going on. But it's clear that with Spacey, that he has very similar patterns of behavior, at least the patterns that have been alleged are very similar to one another, where he tends to grab, heterosexual men, underage men. These are men that would be vulnerable should, something about the interaction come out. So that in and of itself is a little striking to me. It reads as predatory as opposed to just the normal, bumbles of, are you interested in me or not? I'm trying to figure it out. Like, how do I make a move without making a move? Like, there are moves you can make without grabbing some dude's private area. And, it seems that he almost had, got used to that and tried to use that as an excuse when he came out, instead of being like, I'm gay. This is normal for us. We just grab each other all the time. No, sweetie. No, not like that. and not in those contexts either. Like,
how did you two meet? Was it a little under the table grabbing?
No, we met on Facebook. We're so boring.
So boring. Modern love story.
Mutual friends. Yeah.
Okay, let me take this one off the screen. Is it worth us watching? I mean, I'm enjoying this topic. Is it worth us showing people some of the crazy video he did, or no?
I think maybe just
I
a
haven't
little
seen
bit.
it in a
If we can
while.
talk over it, I think it should be fine. Although it does sort of open. The only thing, I get so paranoid now ever since I did a little bit of talking about a specific drag kid whose name I won't mention.
Right.
His mother is a copyright crazy, and any time that you
She'll
play
report it.
anything, she likes to report. So I don't know if Kevin Spacey has like an agency that's like scouring the web for anything that any of his content that's been used to paint him in a negative light. But it's possible. It's not. You can always appeal. You can always appeal based on fair use, but that takes time. So it's up to you.
If they can report it, they'll
So
report it.
What you can do is you can probably show it without the volume, or you can only play I'd play no more than like 5 to 10 seconds at a
Just
time.
play
without
it,
stopping
talk,
it
play
and
it,
talking
talk.
about it.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Let me just
Break it
play
up.
then a couple seconds. I'm just going to pick a random part. By the way, before we put this up,
You should just play the part that says where you kill him with kindness, because the way that he says it is so creepy.
is that at the end?
Yeah, I think it is towards the end.
Okay. Before we bring that up, I'm going to tell an anecdote, a story. Now, this is secondhand, but when I worked in entertainment, I worked at a couple different management companies before I started my own with my partner, who's a music manager, but I managed comedians. I worked at a couple companies that had music managers there and music clients. I know of a story of a straight musician who had his own thing happened with Kevin Spacey.
Oh.
And I've been waiting ever since this happened for this singer to come out and talk about what happened to him, and he hasn't. So it's not my story. I'm just saying, in Hollywood or in that industry, when there are stories about all kinds of people. It's one of those situations where it's like Harvey Weinstein, where they're like, everybody knows of a story,
It's an
right.
open secret, and
Yes.
when it comes to the abuse, especially around like what's happening with kids and young people, it's an open secret. I'm pretty sure almost all of them know that something is happening, but they don't want to be cast out of the cool kids club and Hollywood and the entertainment industry. So I think a lot of them, they just keep their mouths shut. They turn a blind eye. They act like they don't see them at the parties. They act like they don't hear the things that they hear. Just
There's that fear, and I've learned a lot about it the past 2 years. I've had unfortunate experiences that the silver lining of which have been a few, and one of them is learning how it is that people, I guess it's human nature that a lot of people will not speak up. They always think they're the type who will, but when they're in that situation, whether it's out of fear of becoming the target of this person, the target of someone like Harvey Weinstein, for example, being frozen out of the industry, being frozen out of Hollywood, being defamed and disparaged, or sometimes it's out of fear and sometimes it's out of just greed, where they want something. But I think a lot of people will just stay quiet. And I used to not be able to understand that. I understand a lot better now. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what happens. And that's why these people usually, they don't have the big come up and stay like Kevin Spacey had, like Harvey Weinstein had. Without Me Too, there were a lot of pitfalls of Me Too, but one of the good things is I think they did manage to nail a couple of these predators.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think that's important. And I think the Spacey story is particularly important for another reason, and that's it highlights that abuse happens to men as well, happens to boys.
Yes.
And it's something that's just not talked about as much, and boys are less likely to talk about the abuse they've been through just because of how, we're taught what it's supposed to be, the right way to be a man, and that you're supposed to hold it together and be, strong all the time. That it's particularly shameful when you're a male and you're abused, whether it's by another male or by a woman. It's just particularly shameful for men to be able to admit that.
Right. I think you're right. That's also why the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing was important.
Yes. Same reason.
Same reason. Okay, let's show a little bit of this. We'll see where we're at.
Miss me?
Oh, wait.
You never actually saw me die, did you?
What is this?
Conclusions can be so deceiving.
Oh my
Miss me?
God.
So weird.
Wait, no, that's
They
not
tried
it.
to separate us, but what we have is too strong. It's too powerful. And after all, we shared everything, you and I. I told you my deepest, darkest secrets. I showed you exactly what people are capable of. I shocked you with my honesty, but mostly I challenged you and made you think. And you trusted me, even though you knew you shouldn't.
Also, can I just say, as someone who's from South Carolina, so his character that he's playing in the show House of Cards and that he's playing here, he's he's supposed to be from the poor part of South Carolina. I think he's supposed to be from Gaffney, which is very close to where I grew up. And he doesn't talk like a Gaffney person. He talks like the elite plantation owner, Charleston, kind of like the deep money South.
Yes.
And so he studied the Southern accent, I guess the South Carolina accent, but he picked the genteel one. However, maybe that's because the character Frank would have faked his own. He would have wanted to have a genteel accent. Do you think?
That's what I was gonna say. You know, he would want to appear more as someone from that class bracket as opposed to someone more from the poor South.
The YouTube thing, so I can see the YouTube chat.
Yeah, you wouldn't have Frank's character talking like, you know, come here, bring me that beer from the kitchen, will you? Like, he would be like,
Bring me that beer.
I'd like to be your president.
I like to be your president.
Yeah, this is like a whole like double like I am Frank Underwood thing. It's another way of sort of like almost coming out of the psychopathy closet a little bit.
Yeah.
Just strikes me as weird.
But that's what I think it is, though. That's what I think it is. I'm telling you, I think he's just kind of showing us like this is actually who I am. So, cat's out of the bag now.
Let me find the Kill Him with Kindness. It might have been, he did 2 of these, right?
Yeah, Christmas one.
So that was the one of him sitting next to the fireplace, I believe.
Yeah.
And that one I remember very clearly.
That was the one that also aired like the same day, like hours after I think it was Ari Vine that killed himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
So
Okay.
the timing there was just really sus.
Okay, we're going to share this one, guys. Here we go. By the way, he named it KTWK.
Yes.
Kill Him with Kindness.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Oh, it's too hard to hear him.
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
It's too low to hear it, guys. We're going to put the link in the chat so you can go watch it yourself whenever you want to.
That one's short too, I think.
Yeah, that one's like less than a minute.
Yeah, I think that one. So the first one was sort of like his little post House of Cards announcement, sort of like striking back, and then the other one came out, you know, I think like 3-4 months later, and that was the Kill Them with Kindness in code.
It's so creepy. Well, Peter, this in the chat says he just enjoyed being able to make a confession with total deniability.
Yes, that is the duping delight. That's being able to sort of put it out there and at the same time have that deniability, that plausible denial. Oh, it was just a joke. It was just a video.
I was just joking. Yeah.
I'm an actor. This is what I do.
Night Train, thank you. Night Train says, aside from FNT, I look forward to Carrie Stream more than any other. When she's on FNT, it's like pineapple on pizza. Perfect. That is disgusting.
I love pineapple.
I can't believe you would say that.
It's okay because we like pineapple on our pizza. So.
And Night Train gives us a super chat and says, I don't feel scarred. Maybe I'm just different. Everyone would rub my hair, arms, etc., and it never really bothered me. I got that yellow fever. What?
I don't know if is that specifically in reference to going out in the gay community.
Oh, it's from his previous super chat. I taught English in Korea. I'm a 6 foot straight white male, and old men attempted to grope me inappropriately semi-regularly. I didn't mind it when the women did it, though. LOL.
In Korea, I guess Korea is a low consent country. They don't teach their kids consent there. something.
You know what, Night Train, my husband also taught English in Korea he lived there for many years. And he said people would, just culturally, we were talking about cultural differences. He told me that, because I will sometimes do this, like come here. He said that's the rudest thing you can do. And don't ever do that with your finger curling it towards you. Don't. And but then they'll do weird things. Like one thing that's culturally acceptable there is for people to feed you. Like they'll like your wife might take a piece of food and with chopsticks and try to put it in your mouth, or his students would sometimes try to feed him, like come running over with a piece of cake, like teacher, and try to put in his mouth, and he's like, no. No.
Interesting. And I do remember hearing that on Japan, there's this like one of the weird perversions that some of the dudes have is like they assault women on the trains in public because the trains are so crowded that the people are just very like sardine packed, and that they, people are naturally just pushed up against one another. And there's these dudes that really, they get their jollies on making women in these public spaces feel uncomfortable, such that then they won't cry out. They feel, and a lot of times that, it's something as simple as them being like really close and like breathing, maybe like on her ear or something. And that can have like as much of a psychological effect on, the individual woman because of the culture and the way that, women there are much more reserved. It can psychologically impact them in much the same way as an actual like physical assault.
I believe it. It's I think culturally there's a lot more of the that sort of subway flasher / the upskirt photos, things like that in some cultures. I mean, obviously in New York there's things like that happen as well, but I think I hear mostly of that happening in some Asian cultures.
No, in New York, you just don't go on the subways anymore. It's not safe.
I mean,
we don't like to be on the subway.
Definitely don't go by yourself.
Don't go by yourself. Go during the day.
Don't go to Brooklyn.
Stay out of the Bronx and Brooklyn or deep Brooklyn, certain parts of Brooklyn. But,
the Front Porch Conservative, thank you, sir, says, I'm not late, not grooming, almost mentally regular. Well, good. And you got a fancy chapeau.
I like his hat.
Yeah, I love it. He's always got a fancy hat on.
Okay. I love it when people have like their faces in their accounts. So because it just, I don't know, it adds like a level of personality. It makes me think, oh, that's a real person, as opposed to just like, I say that in our YouTube avatar is like our cartoon cats.
Cat.
Getting sniffed by Joe Biden.
My current Twitter one too is my cartoon cat, but
my Twitter one changes all the time.
Same. I'm always switching it around. But I don't know. I think sometimes people they have particular reasons for being admin online, and
this is true.
And I'm sure sometimes there are very good reasons. But yeah, when you're admin online, you're also more prone to saying shit that you probably would not say if you weren't.
Well, it's kind of like when I was reading some mask studies back when they started doing the mask mandates. One of the ones I read said, and this makes sense.
Careful.
Oh yeah. Well, it said this is actually more about behavior and not about whether they do anything or not. It was that when people wear a mask, they had done these studies that your inhibitions are lowered, which makes sense. And it's the same thing online. I think sometimes if you are anonymous, your inhibitions are a little bit lowered.
Oh yeah.
Then
less of a filter. You're more likely, I think, to say something.
The keyboard warrior.
Yeah.
Stupid or cruel, even because you're not going to face any like real backlash or consequences from that. I think it's
more common in the youth too, or people that are stuck emotionally at a young age level.
I think it was Mike Tyson who said, like everyone's tough until they get punched in the face. And, people online who, especially when they're anonymous, they say all these big things and they talk really big. And I think people like that have never actually truly been confronted in real life. That's another part of this too. How many of these people have ever actually, been in a fight or been punched?
The ones who say threatening things online.
Because it's like, would they say those things? Right, to someone, say to their face, if they knew that the potential for that was there too. And I don't know, I'm not advocating violence here, but I am saying sometimes people say shit that it's just like, boy, if you said that in person to someone, you'd probably get knocked the fuck out right now. So, you have some audacity to say it, and clearly you can say it because you're hiding behind, anonymity, and you're on the internet.
Yeah.
So everyone's tough on the internet.
Which is kind of like, let's bring it back to Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
He can talk tough and,
As the character.
As the character, exactly.
I'm sorry I cut you off. I was like,
No,
yes. It's as he likes to put on that character to say what he really wants to say.
Yeah. I just read, what is this? I had another tab open here about the movie that he lost.
So he's doing nothing right now, right? He has no.
I think he's just fighting these cases.
Yeah, he's not acting. He's not, in any shows or movies or anything, because I definitely haven't heard of him doing anything.
No, he's been too busy dealing with his court cases.
Yeah, well, that's basically, I think, going to be the rest of his life
I couldn't
and career.
I'm not sure when the next date for his civil lawsuit from Anthony Rapp is in New York. I'm waiting to. I haven't seen when the next hearing date is for that. So the court date in the UK is June 23rd. Maybe somebody in the chat can ferret out when the next happening in the Anthony Rapp American case will go down.
It's funny that those are the ones that he deigned to kind of address in the media, because of course he would, because they're fellow actors and he considers they're going to be taken more seriously. And so he kind of commented on those. Well, if it happened, I'm sorry, it was just drunken misbehavior.
See, that's gonna be a real big problem for him, because now he's pled not guilty, and he's already made an apology. So he's got this very public sort of admission of potential guilt. Mm-hmm. He's already admitted that he doesn't really remember because it was so long ago, and he was probably drunk, or he was drunk. So it's gonna be a really interesting case. I don't think, and it's not federal court. I'm pretty sure it's New York State Superior Court. So there might actually be cameras in the courtroom for that one. So if so, it'll make some interesting law tubing for sure.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys just send me?
That is the link to his current loss.
This is where things stand now. Let's bring
this
up.
This is a recent article. This is from 4 days ago, July 14th. So yeah, he lost his role in 2012 or 1242. I'm sorry, Gateway to the West. News of his departure for the film comes the same date that was set for his UK assault trial. So it was interesting. Clearly they're connected. It happened on the same day.
Yeah. For anyone that's just listening at home, this is a Hollywood Reporter article. Can film parts ways with Kevin Spacey amid UK sexual assault charges. Kevin Spacey will no longer be starring in 1242 Gateway to the West. The Hollywood Reporter has confirmed the news of his departure, as you just said, from the film comes on the same day as the date was set for his UK sexual assault trial. On Thursday, the two-time Oscar winner pleaded not guilty to 5 charges against him, which includes 4 counts of sexual assault against 3 men, dating back to 2005. Justice Mark Wall, who was overseeing the hearing at London's historic Central Criminal Court, set the trial date for June 6, 2023. The actor had been set to star in 1242, a historical Genghis Khan drama that was one of 2 Spacey starring features shot at the 2022 Cannes Film Market in May. Directed by Petassus. I don't know. The cast also includes... I just like to pronounce them wrong with confidence. Petassus. The cast also includes Eric Roberts.
Right, actually.
Christopher Lambert, Neil Stuke, and Guinevere Florence. Wow, yeah. He's probably still facing fallout from the fact that these are ongoing.
And apparently he was, as it says there, he was the only one on the movie poster. So they must have changed their mind rather, because none of this is new information. I mean, all this stuff, I guess it was just the publicity eventually got to whoever is behind the film, and they were like, no, we don't, replace him, find somebody else.
Yeah. Listen to this. Spacey is also set to star in Peter 5-8 with those film producers continuing to back the Oscar winner amid the new charges as the House of Cards star attempts to resurrect his acting career following the #MeToo era sexual misconduct allegations that derailed his TV and film roles. So he's still on that one.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
on unconditional bail until his London trial, allowing him to move freely in and out of the UK.
yeah. So the charges against him in the UK are criminal charges. So and the charges here in the US are civil. He's being sued basically because the statute of limitations in the criminal in that situation expired. But in the UK, I don't believe they have really loose rules about statutes of limitations, about, like assault and that kind of stuff. So they were able to proceed with a criminal proceeding against him. So he's on unconditional bail. It basically means he doesn't have, he's basically treated like everybody else. He's technically out on bail, but he didn't actually have to pay bail. He doesn't have any bail requirements. It's just sort of understood that, because of his fame, he's not obviously just going to disappear.
Yeah.
So
this is it's fascinating when I'm prejudiced here, my opinion, because I'm telling you right up front, I think he's guilty of maybe not every accusation, because when accusations start, then other people come out of the woodwork. But I believe that he's guilty of some of these things. And I think that he has some kind of personality disorder. So these are all things these are my presuppositions.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's
but for
interesting
real
to
though,
me.
like Josh says, diagnose.
Oh,
you
yeah.
can you don't have to be an expert for some of this stuff to diagnose. Sometimes it's just really obvious. Like, call a spade a spade. You don't got to sit there and be
Right.
like, oh, well, he probably is. And I don't think
Besides,
there's wrong with saying it.
I can't diagnose anyway. I am not a doctor, so I can say whatever I want. I can have whatever opinion I want, and it's good to have opinions and learn how to spot these red flags of these personality disordered types. It's good to be able to do that. All that being said, because I think all that about him, the fact that he's insisting that he's not guilty and he's trying to resurrect his career, that to me, that's like the Amber Heard kind of narcissism thing, where it's sort of like, it doesn't matter what evidence you have against me. It doesn't matter what's painfully obvious to so many. I am going to continue to be out here. Like, they don't have any shame.
They think they're gonna win, and it's like, look what happened to Epstein, for example. The first time he got caught, what year was this, Brent? That he got locked up the first time?
2000. I want to say 2003.
2003. So it's like he got locked up. He served like 2 years and I think it was something like 2 years.
It was probation.
Yeah, a really cushy probation.
It wasn't probation. I'm sorry. It was like during the day. He was like in jail on the weekends or something strange. And then during the day, he was allowed to go to his office where he would also, continue to meet young ladies.
So the abuse continued even while he was under probation and stuff. And
even while he was like serving his sentence for being. Yeah.
And he continued rubbing elbows with the Hollywood elite and stuff as soon as all of that was over.
Kept hanging out with Bill Gates.
Kept hanging out with him, until he gets caught again, obviously, later on.
Even after, I think in 2008, after he got caught the second time, I think he was still hanging out with Bill Gates.
And here's why I'm bringing this up, because, after he died, the hashtag went around, Epstein didn't kill himself. And there are a lot of people who still contend with that. They're like, he probably did. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe he wanted to escape his fate and this and that. I don't buy that. When I look at someone like Epstein, I'm like, that guy wouldn't have just given up that way. I think
no.
My point is, I think he would have continued to try to fix his image, to get back into the game.
Narcissists do not self-delete.
Yeah, I don't think he was going to just kill himself and give up. That guy really believed he would continue, and that I think he would get away with it. And so this is why I'm not convinced that he quote unquote killed himself. But
I'm with you. I think a man like that also, a lot of people think that someone maybe took him out and they presented it as a suicide. I don't think anyone took him out either, because I think a guy like that would have had several kill switches where it's like, if I die, all this info comes out about all these people, right? So I think he's still alive. That's just me. This is the conspiracy. I need my tinfoil hat. I just
that's one theory. I'm of a mind that Jelaine isn't actually locked up right now. They have a body. They're paying somebody to be in there for her.
She's the one I think has the kill switches set up personally. Yeah. I think maybe what happened
also, she was more connected than he was.
Well, I think
familially.
I think she did have the deeper connections to Maxwell family and all that, ties to the Mossad. We went into that on Dangerous Rhetoric. But, with Epstein, it's like, I don't know, maybe he didn't set those kill switches up. Maybe he had such hubris and he was so certain that he would just never get caught.
Maybe he did, and the people that knew how to disarm them disarmed them.
Disarm them. I don't know. lean toward him being dead, but just being the conspiracy theorist type that I am, and I love to play with those ideas and to speculate into, you know, it's fun, I think, to do that. And you can hold ideas and wear them. You don't have to like accept everything, you know, that you think about. I think it is an interesting way to look at it. And
Yeah, I have no idea, but that's what my gut says. That's what if I were to do a conspiracy theory show, I don't have a lot of stock in convincing. I don't need to convince other people though, so I'm not gonna try to. Waffle, thank you for the $15 in. I still don't know what that is. Is that
Shekels.
Nintendo money? What is it?
Shekels. It's
Oh.
Israeli currency.
yeah, by the way, the
Not
currency
Bitcoin,
symbol,
sorry.
the symbol is shekels, not Bitcoin. Sorry.
Last time Waffle gave me a super chat, I was like, "Is that? Are you giving me 3 Bitcoin?"
No, it's
No.
shekels. Shalom, my friend.
No, the Bitcoin symbol is a little B with the 2 lines through it. So it's like the dollar sign,
like the dollar
with
sign.
an S, except it's a B with the 2 dashes.
So Waffle gives me 15 Nintendo dollars and says Kevin Spacey backwards is Nevik Yecaps, which means absolutely nothing. By the way, the currency symbol is shekels, not Bitcoin. Sorry, greetings from Israel. Thank you very much for the shekels. Sorry for my ignorance. Okay. So did you guys want to talk more about psychopathy and Kevin Spacey? Or I have one other news item I would like to put on the screen. See what you think about it.
I
Pull it up.
think we've run through
Yeah, we've
all.
probably
I'm
run
just
through that.
going through my links here to make sure we did the UK stuff. We went over the 3 people who passed. And then the latest. This is the latest, and this is from April 10th, actually.
Okay.
This is Kevin Spacey's judge. Lawyers are asking the judge to throw out Kevin Rapp's civil suit against him. Let me see. I can put this link in the private chat if you want to pull it up. Paste.
Let me grab this. And then there's the last little bit of Kevin Spacey update we're doing, and then I have something else I want to talk about.
Yeah, there's actually another story I'll show you too that is weird and somewhat related, but not necessarily. I'll put that here. You can look at that later. But yeah, this is. So where did I put that link?
Kevin Spacey. This is the headline. Deadline article from April. Kevin Spacey asked judge to throw out Anthony Rapp's sex abuse lawsuit. Oh, to just totally get rid of it. Kevin Spacey has filed yet another motion in federal court in his ongoing battle with actor Anthony Rapp over alleged sexual abuse. Spacey's lawyers asked the judge Friday to dismiss Rapp's sex abuse lawsuit, claiming the allegations made about Spacey's conduct at a 1980 party were false and never occurred. Wow, you're right, though. In his apology, he said if they did occur.
Yeah, it's that's going to be the rub for him here, and that's why I think he's not going to be able, because had he not done that, had he have just sort of denied from the beginning, that might have been plausible. But since he sort of already publicly opened himself up with an apology, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. And the thing that annoyed me about this article is that it doesn't tell you what the next step in the legal process is. You know, it just talks about the guy from Nantucket who got dismissed in 2019. And that was from, so that story, the reason that guy got dismissed, this was a separate, so this guy actually survived, but he refused to testify. He was pleading the fifth a lot, and he had some cell phone evidence, text messages or pictures that were deleted from his phone. And because they were saying that he was sort of unwilling as a plaintiff to continue with the lawsuit, so the lawsuit had to be dropped. Now, what I wonder is, because he was this is another John Doe young person, I wonder if they threatened him. If he's pleading the Fifth Amendment, when you plead the fifth, you do that because you think that as a consequence of you telling the truth, you can either suffer you can suffer legal actions, or you yourself could be physically endangered. So I thought that was interesting. He was pleading the fifth, and he was refusing to skip that part. He had to waive his Fifth Amendment rights, and he wouldn't. So that was an interesting end to that lawsuit. There's just so many of these incidents with Kevin Spacey. I find it very hard to believe that everyone is making it up or exaggerating. And we just do a tally, right? Okay, so the tally right now is we've got 5 people in the UK. We've got Anthony Rapp. We've got this young boy here, the 18-year-old. We have the masseuse, the unnamed masseuse who died of cancer. We have Ari Bine, who self-deleted. So right there, that's nine people just off the top of my head.
Yeah, all connected to this.
That's a lot.
That's why, that's why I think where there's smoke, there's fire.
So we can leave that. I guess we can leave
someone
that.
in the chat said Kevin Spacey is not an issue. I mean, I don't think we're discussing this as an issue about him specifically, but I think the subjects that this story touches on are an issue.
Psychopathy.
Oh, absolutely.
And power,
abuse of boys, especially, again, something not talked about enough. So in that regard, I think
origins of evil.
Right.
Yes, origins of evil. So I think, what we're doing here, Kevin Spacey is just a sort of jumping off point, like an example, an anecdote about, a much bigger
case study,
if you will, about a much bigger thing we're talking about that is actually like a series of issues, right?
Yeah.
So.
I'm interested, me. I mean, I'm interested in all this stuff, and I think it all relates back because even my interest in true crime and stuff, it comes from a place of trying to understand evil, like trying to wrap my head around it. And so much of, even to take it back to the book we talked about at the beginning from book club, The Real Anthony Fauci, we were talking about in book club yesterday, one of the I think one of the roadblocks for people is believing that their government doesn't have their best interests at heart. It's hard for them to believe that unless they grew up in a communist country or a place where they know, right? But we here grow up, a lot of us, with the illusion. I used to be under the illusion that they really care for us. No. But the second roadblock is when you're reading this, there's so much evil that Fauci did that you almost are left wondering how could a person do these things knowing what they're doing. And so many people in this book who participated in knowing what they're doing. There's one guy, he was a scientist from the WHO, Dr. Andrew Hill, and that part of the story is just crazy because you see this guy who he won't do the right thing because he says he's being pressured, he won't do the right thing, and then you see him sort of evolve, and the longer that you refuse to do the right thing, I think the more you get mired in bad decisions and evil, and the more it spirals, and you start, and by the end, he's like got a career attacking these doctors who are telling the truth now. He started off, he could have been one of them. He was one of them. And then he went the other way. I just think it's all related. Like, why do people do evil? I think a roadblock for some is that they couldn't imagine that Fauci would do these things. So even if they were to read it, they might go, well, I know you're giving me facts and stuff and studies and everything, but and evidence of his knowledge of some of these things, but I still don't believe it.
So this is an interesting thing that ties into just predators in general too. Going back to the subject of like Kevin Spacey and all that, is typically what these types will do is they'll ingratiate themselves in a community. They'll volunteer at the soup kitchen. They'll walk the old lady across the street and things like that. And then when it's revealed that so and so is a child molester and did this, the community they typically don't believe it. They turn on the victim in a lot of cases. And we recommend the book Predators by Anna Salter. She talks a lot about this in that book. But they will typically not believe the victim and like support the victimizer because he's just presented himself in this like amazing, like perfect community citizen image that so and so, they would never do that. They volunteer at the church every Sunday and this and this and that, and they can put that mask on. They can wear that sort of disguise and appear to be like a truly caring, good person, but it's just they're feigning it. It's a facade, and then on the side they're doing all these horrible things and hurting kids, etc.
I think that a couple people in the chat nailed it. Jean Ellis, hi Jean. She says good people have a hard time recognizing that there's immense evil in other people. Yes, this is a bias that people have. I think all people, where you assume that everyone's like you, and so evil people, I think they believe that everyone's evil, like they are, like they really believe everyone.
No, I don't think that's it. I think they
Really?
know. I think a psychopath some of them get to the point where I think they do fundamentally understand there's something different about them. And I think what happens is they actually view themselves as superior. They're better than you. They're better than us. Your pesky little pathetic emotions, they keep you from doing the things that I can do to get power.
Oh, you're right. There is that element of it.
And all this. And this is how I think some of them view it, when they start to see themselves as different.
they do sort of see us as,
curious.
Well, they see us as less than, but also there is this sort of, I think they do project their own evil outward.
Maybe,
because they generate all these narratives that justify and rationalize why their abuse of the individual is reasonable. And then they believe them, and they believe them so well that they could pass a lie detector test if they were being asked, or they can convince other people, because they just seem so genuine when they tell their side of the tale. Well, that's because they believe their own BS. They don't have the capacity for self-doubt. It's completely absent in a natural born psychopath.
To go back to the point the commenter made too, I think as people with a conscience, and especially if you're someone who has a functioning conscience, a functioning one, and you're high in empathy and you really do care about people, naturally it's like we want to believe there's a little bit of good in everyone. We want to believe that every being is somehow just redeemable, even in just the slightest way. We want to think, even Hitler can be saved and things like that. And it's way more difficult and hard to grapple with the possibility that may not be the case, and
that's not the case. There are some people who
that's hard though for people who do have empathy to accept, especially if you're someone who's deeply spiritual or religious, and then you're thinking about this question of the soul and like how does that tie into this. Does everyone have a soul? Is a psychopath a soulless being?
No. Yes,
probably not, right? I don't know. But it's like you have to ask these questions, like what constitutes a soul? Like if someone doesn't have
I'm with you, Brently.
Sorry, I don't think Jeffrey Epstein had a soul. I don't think Ghislaine Maxwell had a soul.
That's a hard thing to contend with, that there can be like beings out there that are more just vessel, and there's not
they're empty. They're like hollows in Bleach.
So
if you get that reference.
That's not a thing for people who are empathetic to accept. I think we do just want to believe people are all good, and we want to help. We want to save them. We want to somehow fix them and make them not evil, and that could be your undoing because they will use that shit against you.
I want to respond to this. Rib Rascal in chat says we all have the capacity for evil. I've felt it. Yes, I agree. It is very dark. Yes, the book Crime and Punishment. All about that, and that's a main character who I would argue he's not a psychopath. He's not an evil person. He's a person who allows himself to commit a great evil, and then the rest of the book is him grappling with it.
Out of desperation and a lot of reasons. But I mean, it's weird. It's like you kind of sympathize a little bit with Raskolnikov, but at the same time, you hate him. He's not like
and the thing is, you watch in that book, he could at that point, after he's committed this great evil, this murder, you watch his soul. There's like a struggle for his soul. So now do you just succumb to and become this evil person, or do you find a path of redemption? And the rest of the book I think is about that, because a psychopath wouldn't have all the problems he's having with living with it.
Yes, that internal struggle that Raskolnikov goes through in the book would not be a thing for a psychopath. They wouldn't have any problem with having killed someone. They would just go on as if nothing happened.
But but I think Rib made a good point, is that even non-psychopaths can be evil. We can through a combination of choice or damage.
It's just unthinkingness. I think it's mechanical unthinkingness. A lot of evil is just people not even questioning. It's look at what happened over the last 2 years, all the authoritarianism and shit we saw. How much of that was like real, just like people doing evil, and how much of that was people just sitting back and letting things happen the way they happened. And this goes back to the concept that Hannah Arendt talked about, just the banality of evil, right? Like most evil, I think, just takes place from people simply just following orders and letting the course of things go the way they're going. They're not necessarily active participants all the time in that evil, but just by being a supporter or a silent observer of it, in a sense,
silence is complicity.
Yes, you are part of that larger banality of evil that happens on a societal wide scale. But back to the individual, I agree with the comment, and it's like Solzhenitsyn said, the line of good and evil runs through every human heart. And I think it's true, the dark things in us, they're there. And that's one of the reasons I think we're able to be good people. Like Peterson talks about this all the time. It's because we know the sick, evil shit we're capable of doing to other people that we know what not to do to other people. You understand? Because we know what we don't want done to us.
Yeah. Yeah, Jordan Peterson, Zato gives a great quote from Peterson. I don't think that you have any insight whatsoever into your capacity for good until you have some well-developed insight into your capacity for evil. That's actually, there's a much older quote from C.S. Lewis. It's something like, no man knows how bad he is until he has tried very hard to be good.
Yeah.
And I'm paraphrasing, but it's C.S. Lewis. I know that Peterson reads him a lot. He's got a lot of great content, a lot of great writing on this stuff.
Good quote too by Dion. She put a couple of them out there, but this one's Nathaniel Hawthorne. There is evil in every human heart, which may remain latent, perhaps, through the whole of life, but circumstances may rouse it to activity.
It's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run to the bathroom just real quick.
Okay. This is one of my, I mean, I love talking about this stuff. That's why I'm excited to read the book you guys suggested. And whoever it was that gave the original comment, I can't find, I'm trying to scroll up, but they were saying like Kevin Spacey's not that important.
It's not an issue.
Sayer. Well, then he says, why do I even bother? Well, thank you for bothering, because you actually prompted a really interesting conversation, I think.
Yeah, no, for real. I mean, you can have those comments. We don't have to necessarily disagree with how you stated it or whatever, but I mean, we appreciate it.
This is the kind of stuff I would be talking about in the room if somebody was disagreeing. Like, it's just, I love this stuff. So,
but I think I get the point that they were making it with the comment. So let me address it a bit. And I think there's a bit of validity to it. Sure, there are huge, bigger stories and things going on in the world right now besides Kevin Spacey. So if you want to look at it in the sense of that, like comparing certain events and things happening right now, yes, obviously there's probably a million other like very important things we could talk about. But it doesn't mean that the issues that surround a story like Kevin Spacey aren't real issues that are important to discuss. And I think that's the only point I was trying to make. You know, I wasn't trying to say that, oh, Kevin Spacey is a huge important issue that everyone should be more concerned about than everything else. No, obviously not. But I mean, look, if people don't care about the subject, you don't have to watch either. So there's also that.
Oh, I never justify what I talk about, really. It's like, I just talk about what interests
me. Yeah, I mean, whatever interests you. That's what we do on Dangerous Rhetoric as well. We have a diverse range of things that interest us. It's part of why it's hard to grow the show for us, because, you know, we just have such a wide variety of things that we like to discuss. The algorithm probably doesn't even know who to recommend us to sometimes. But,
Crime and Punishment. People are asking what book.
Yes.
It was Crime and Punishment, which is excellent.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up this. I'm going to switch topics here.
Notes from the Underground is a really good book too by Dostoevsky. It's a novella, so it's a really short one, but another one that looks at the question of evil in depth.
So I am going to change the subject. This is an article that Manny told me about during book club yesterday. Thank you, Manny. I wasn't aware, and I am very excited. CNBC just listed in this article these 10 states are America's worst places to live in 2022, and they listed my state, Texas, is number 2, the second worst state to live in. What? Please first of all, let's get the word out. I'm gonna make some memes. Especially if you have friends in California, please send them this article. I want them to know how awful it is here.
Don't come here. It sucks.
Stay away.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
It's so bad. Everybody has guns, and you can't get an enforcement on the pin.
It's a war zone. You're gonna die. Be careful, man. Don't go to Texas.
It's the most terrible state, and it's the second most terrible state. Actually, so let's read through this together. I'm curious what you guys think of it. We can pause and talk about it, because it's really, when I got into the meat of the article, it's really funny how they came up with this list. Key points. In this era of severe worker shortages and unprecedented mobility, employees are demanding great quality of life in the state where they choose to, I guess, move and work. Half of business executives surveyed agree it's important to do business in states with inclusive laws. Okay.
But half of them disagree with that then. It's a nonsense statement. Like, what's the point? Like,
By the way, I think you're going to see that a lot of this is about ESG, which I know you guys are.
yeah.
CNBC's annual America's Top State for Business study considers multiple measures of the quality of life, health, and inclusion. Okay. So it says they're talking about workers demanding a welcoming environment and a great quality of life in the places they work. This is why CNBC's annual America's Top States for Business study pays particular attention to quality of life. Now, with workers increasingly holding the cards, it's especially important in our methodology. Our life, health, and inclusion category considers factors such as crime rates, environmental quality, and healthcare. For the first time in 2022, we also considered the availability of childcare, which the U.S. Chamber of Commerce found is a major obstacle for parents seeking to re-enter the workforce. We also consider inclusiveness of state laws in areas like protections against discrimination and voting rights. That's not politics, it's business. Many Gen Z and millennial workers will turn down jobs that don't match their values, Deloitte found. If you need workers, you want to be a place they're willing to go. We found some states are not particularly welcoming, but we found that some are particularly welcoming, but these 10 fall short.
So that must be the list of their top 10 places that are the best to live.
Yeah, we'll check that one out next. I bet you California is on there.
California and New York probably top of the list.
Let's read what's awful about my state, Texas.
Oh, of course we go back to the coof.
Terrible place.
Yeah.
Filled
First of all,
policy.
I just want to take this picture of a person in the hospital and put Texas, don't move here. This could be you.
This is Texas. That's all you need is this is Texas. Like, perfect.
Warnings on everything. Like
everyone here is dying of COVID. Leave.
Yeah, kind of like the cigarette boxes in Europe.
Yeah.
Like an advertisement to travel to Texas. They just got to put like horrible images like this up there, of everything suffer from going there.
Yeah. Texas, do you really want to end up this way? Okay. Skilled workers are still flocking to Texas despite longstanding quality of life issues. According to census data, the state ranks number 3 for net migration of college-educated workers behind Florida and Washington. Oh, it sucks. But when they arrive, they are finding limited childcare options, a stressed healthcare system with the highest rates of the uninsured, new curbs on voting rights. What? And few protections.
You have to show an ID.
Yeah, God forbid, right?
Curbs on voting rights. God forbid you have to show an ID.
Yeah.
You have to identify yourself and prove who you are.
It's easier to get into an R-rated movie than it is, or it's harder to get into an R-rated movie than it is to, go to somebody else.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject right there.
And few protections against discrimination. Now, it's funny, they don't give any information on what they mean by this, so I think you're right. Curbs on voting rights, they mean you have to show your ID to vote. And few protections against discrimination. I think that means that we've now decided you cannot do a double mastectomy on your 12-year-old.
Yeah, God forbid, right? Man, you can't cut your kids' tits off? What kind of world are we living in here? Crazy.
My rights.
Strengths, none. No metrics in the top 50%.
Oh my. Wow.
We got an F. I'm going to make so many memes with this. We are an F.
F.
Please, our weaknesses are childcare, health resources, inclusiveness, and voting rights. Yeah, don't come.
All right, so strengths, gun rights. Texas is constitutional carry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So that's a strength.
Strengths are some of our strengths are the very things they're decrying. In my opinion, it's like if you're the kind of person who wants to make sure that multiple people aren't voting or people aren't voting multiple times. I mean, yeah, you have to show your ID to vote here. We are not allowing parents any longer. It was happening as young as 13 could get an elective double mastectomy here, but no more. What else?
That should be nationwide, really. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand why can it, we have such strong protections for children against statutory grape. Because we understand that children can be coerced, they can be manipulated, they can appear to give consent when they are not actually capable of giving that consent, and they can go along with an activity that may not be to their best interests. And yet, when it comes to this gender bending stuff, they want to give them the puberty blockers or the cross-sex hormones or the double mastectomies. And in some cases, there was even, I think it was Jazz Jennings, is the young trans woman now who had bottom surgery, had his, I don't even know what pronouns to use, had the penis chopped off.
Wow.
So, at 16.
But it's not happening, Brent.
But it's not happening.
It's not happening.
Oh, it's rare. It's so rare.
It's not happening.
Oh, but when it does happen, it's actually a good thing.
It's on TV, Carrie, but it's not happening.
But it's not happening.
It's not happening.
There was a whole TV show about it. And they tell you that it's not happening.
It's not
I'm like,
happening,
sweetie.
It's not happening.
Are you guys? I just got a message from my husband saying to turn my microphone up.
Are
Can
we
you guys
loud?
hear me?
I hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Okay. No, I
Maybe-
think he was just saying my microphone was low or something. Anyway,
You can turn your microphone up.
I think I just did. So we should be good.
How does it sound in the chat? What does the chat say?
Chat, weigh in. Sorry to interrupt with that notice. I wasn't paying attention and I saw that come in 23 minutes ago. He said it was low. Anyway,
Talking quiet or something.
yeah. Well, let's see what the worst state is. Arizona, it's they're talking about how it's a dry heat. It leads to some of the worst air quality in the nation, according to the American Lung Association. They have 39 high ozone days per year. They have stress on an already poor healthcare system, short on hospital beds. They spend just $79 per person on public health. Wow. Among the country's lowest. And air quality, health resources, inclusiveness low on that as well.
It's like, what does that even mean?
So basically, Arizona is dry and you can't get free money there. So don't go there.
Yeah. Oh, and then look, my home state, I'm from South Carolina. They're number 4. They get, let's say, they finish at the bottom for healthcare resources and look, weaknesses, voting rights, health resources, and crime.
They also require ID in South Carolina.
Are there no blue states on this?
I don't think so. Oklahoma.
Well, it's a CNBC.
It's
thing.
ridiculous,
It's
though.
just
It's
so obviously biased.
We're not going to look at crime rates in California. We're not going to look at crime rates in New York and New Jersey. We're not going to. No.
Missouri, Louisiana, New Mexico.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Indiana, Tennessee.
Like, how is New Jersey not on here? I'm from New Jersey, and I can tell you it should probably
A lot
be
of
on
these
list.
are pro gun rights.
Yeah,
states, too.
exactly. And you go to Jersey, it's the strictest, probably.
I wouldn't even
run
be
state.
surprised if all 10 of them were constitutional carry at this point.
Probably.
Okay, well, let's see. I haven't looked at this yet, so this will be a surprise. The 10 states, now CNBC did a companion piece, the 10 best states to live.
Let's see. This is going to be good.
Iowa,
Iowa's number 10. Never been there.
good for healthcare, they say.
Never been to Oregon either.
Oregon. Oh my goodness, Oregon. You guys, why are you leaving Oregon? I mean, just stay there. It's the best. It's the 8th best.
Oh, apparently they're tied.
The time.
Oh, they're tied.
So Oregon is tied with New Jersey.
There it is. I was wondering where my state was going to pop up on the list. What does it say about Jersey? Let me see.
You want to read it?
Yeah, let's see it. How comprehensive are New Jersey's public accommodation laws? According to the National Conference of State Legislators, this is one of the only 5 states to bar discrimination based on pregnancy and childbirth. The Garden State is also one of America's safest in terms of violent crimes per capita. Are you kidding me? Camden is one of those dangerous cities in the country. Let me stop. Strengths, inclusiveness, voting rights, crime rate. Crime rate? Again, Camden is one of the most dangerous cities in the country. Newark is also quite a dangerous place.
Well, but that's why they put it in terms of per capita and not in terms of raw numbers.
Yeah.
Because if you were to look at the raw numbers of incidents, it would seem very high.
'Cause
You
it is.
know, but when you break it, put it over the population, it muddles out the effect.
Yeah. I mean, New Jersey, though, it's the most densely populated state. We have the most people crammed into the smallest amount of space. Of course, we're going to have high crime rates. So it is a valid point.
Do you notice how in the article with the 10 worst states to live, they had scary pictures of people at the hospital?
Yes.
Yeah.
And in this one, they have like really fun, like New
Fun,
Jersey.
on the boardwalk, Jersey Shore, riding bikes. Like, yeah.
This could be you.
What do the weaknesses say? Child care and air quality. Yeah, no gun rights, though, right?
Yeah.
Freaking hate New Jersey gun laws. The worst.
I'm shocked they put Nebraska on the good places to live. The Cornhusker state. But they are weak on inclusiveness, Nebraska. You guys.
Come on, Nebraska, step your representation up.
Washington is one of the best states to live. Everyone's fleeing there.
Yeah.
Washington, let's see.
Wasn't Chaz in Seattle?
The Chaz was Seattle, and Portland in Oregon is terrible.
They have a high inclusion score, and
of course
they're really strong in anti-discrimination laws.
Yep,
so woke.
Yeah, it's interesting how they prioritize things. It's like it seems that if you have very good public resources for childcare, for public health, and for the environment, it's like that's when they give you the pluses. But
nothing about the cost of living.
Nothing about the cost of living. Nothing about gun rights, taxes, property taxes.
Nothing.
Because New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes. In the nation.
Yep. Well. A lot of people who live in New Jersey and have their wealth there work in New York City. They don't live in New York City. Yeah. So
they also say Missouri's great. They have a strength as inclusiveness.
I don't know what that means. What the hell do they mean by that?
They don't include any info on that.
Doesn't mean anything.
I'm shocked they put North Dakota here, though.
Yeah, wasn't that? No, that was that was Whitmer, wasn't it?
Didn't they have a light lockdown policies too? Weren't they one of the states who were like, we're not doing this?
No, so I think
was that South Dakota?
I think that was South Dakota. Okay. South Dakota and North Dakota very different in that regard. I have to excuse New York in the background.
Yeah, it's just part of our vibe. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, no, I think and North Dakota, I believe Governor Whitmer was the governor who the FBI had basically sicked a bunch of assets and informants on these mentally ill people, and basically got them to go along with this kidnapping plot. And well, it was a whole big deal. It was this big thing in the news, and they blow it up. And then when it came to the trial, all of the people got they got the trial dismissed because it was revealed in the course of the trial that it was primarily the FBI and the FBI's agents and assets that were advancing the plot, making suggestions about, we should go and do recon. So then they would go and they'd drive around and take pictures or whatever. And that was one of the things that they used to arrest all these men. Well, when it comes out, it's like they wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for the FBI giving them a big old shove. So they dismissed the whole thing because it was entrapment. And then interesting data point with that, the guy that the FBI agent that was in charge of that investigation, that was in charge of all those agents that oversaw the whole Whitmer kidnapping thing, was moved from their office in North Dakota, brought him back home to Washington, D.C. just in time for January 6th. Wow. So, and then he was put in charge of that whole thing. So it is very, very suspicious when it comes to when you look into these details and you start to connect all the dots, you're like, interesting. I don't want to say
like a lot of the people involved in all of these plots end up being FBI informants.
Yeah, if we could defund the FBI or, really, I'd like to get rid of all of the 3-letter agencies and just start fresh. Just get rid of all of them. I think that would save us billions of dollars per year in terms of tax money. It would evaporate a lot of bureaucracy overnight.
There's so much problems with the 3-letter agencies.
Well, it's not just the FBI. I mean, FBI, CIA,
the CIA
ATF,
or worse.
The FDA, ostensibly in charge of protecting our food and drug supply, which they haven't really been doing a great job, have they, folks?
Well, I mean, one of the things, Kennedy had to sort of contend with JFK, especially after like the Bay of Pigs incident and all that stuff, was like he started to realize just how powerful the CIA was, like almost like too powerful. You know, it's like here's an organization that is composed of like unelected officials who have a huge amount of influence in our foreign policy, and they kind of involve themselves in the politics of all these other nations across the world, and they do it without any oversight, typically, even from the president. And he started to realize like all the stuff they were just doing behind his back, fired Alan Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, that sort of thing. And then after JFK gets assassinated, Dulles ends up on the Warren Commission to investigate the assassination, you know, weird shit like that. So it's like, I think the CIA, I always view them as kind of the, we'll say the strong arm of the secret government, or the deep state, if you want to use that term. Like, I don't think they're the deep state themselves. I think they're more like they're the secret soldiers in a sense.
Yeah.
Sent out to keep the power
It's a
structure
secret police.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to make a correction just to make sure it was very clear that that Governor Whitmore kidnapping plot, that was Michigan. She's the governor of Michigan.
Yeah.
My bad.
And that's fine. A couple people in the chat.
There's
made
so
that
many things
correction.
going on, man. It's really hard to remember the details of everything.
Well, it's important though because Michigan is
Yeah.
a deep blue state.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, good, important correction for sure. Gracias.
Hawaii, one of the best places to live, of course.
So
Yeah,
expensive.
It is very expensive though.
Tourist spot, you know.
Maine.
Yeah, I need to go to Maine. I want to go to Stephen King's house. Everyone wants to do
I always forget Maine exists.
and
Up there.
Vermont.
Vermont.
Uh,
Shout out to Josh Slocum.
yeah, Josh, voting rights strong, inclusiveness weak, strong, but not as strong as the other metrics.
No explanation what that means, but
Again, there's no. It's just this vague, like
Yeah.
what? It's high in inclusiveness. How did you come to that? What does that even mean? They don't explain.
Yeah, it's very strange.
so dumb. New York's not on there. I'm shocked.
I'm shocked that
New
California is
York
not
is-
on here.
Yeah,
in
well,
New York.
But I'm a little shocked New Jersey ended up on. I'm like, really?
Yeah, you were like, "Where's New Jersey?" Oh, it's on the best states to live list.
I'm shocked. I mean, but I'm not. Actually, maybe I shouldn't be shocked. I should have expected that they would try to tout those blue states, right?
I'm surprised
Yeah.
they didn't have Florida on the naughty list.
Yeah, man. What was that?
Especially with that whole, parental rights bill.
Yeah,
Right.
and then all the hate DeSantis is getting from these types.
Yeah. What? Thank you, Cowboy Carpentry. It's very nice to see you in the chat. She gives a super chat and says, "I'm happy to see South Carolina on that terrible 10 list." Yeah, girl.
Don't
Get you
come
some
here.
memes made. Don't move
Stay
here.
away. Stay away. Stay where you are.
Cool.
South Carolina is lovely. I need to see more of it. I've been to like Myrtle Beach. I played a show over there when I was like 24, 25, and went on a little tour with friends band. It's lovely. I like Myrtle Beach, although it rained a lot when I was there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, special place in my heart. That's where I'm from. It's home for me in a different way than Texas. It's just beautiful hiking, the outdoors. Like in the fall, it's gorgeous there. All the trees change color, and the Appalachian Trail is there. And I just love. I'm from a really small town, and it reminds me of some of the Texan small towns, and just these mom and pop owned diners and everything. Of course, you have a lot of the fast food joints moving in now, like a lot of the chains, but there's still a good amount of locally owned businesses.
Climate wise, I think it's great. It's kind of, in
Great.
the middle. It's not so far south where it's like really, really hot, but it's hotter. You have a longer growing season in a place like South Carolina, but it's not like Florida, when it comes to being like almost subtropical.
Yeah. The Gay Rascal. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Gives a super chat.
That
Great
profile
name.
picture.
Yeah, I love the gay Batman with the Hello Kitty symbol. Love it.
He's great. You got to follow him on Twitter.
I'm
He
gonna
says
find it right now.
inclusiveness is measured by how much minorities dare to think for themselves.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So if they don't think for themselves, then it's high in inclusiveness, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. If you conform, to the stereotype of what it means to be a good minority
Yeah. A good minority.
or a good ally.
Not a self-hating ally. Yeah. Well, I didn't have a lot to talk about today. I was very curious about the Kevin Spacey stuff. I wanted to highlight the fact and celebrate the fact that Texas is the second worst state to live in, and just make sure to drive that message home for
Stay
anyone
away.
watching. And what is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
No, I mean, I had fun with this, honestly. Maybe Brent
Yeah.
might want to pull
I
something up
had
really
this
quick.
one other story. It's
Okay.
it's totally out of left field.
Oh, this.
And it's alone. It's about Ricky Martin.
Which, yeah. See,
Okay.
we don't talk pop culture stuff often, so it is nice to like.
But the reason
once
I
in a
brought it
while
up
do
was
this,
because in
yeah.
the context of assault and graping and
Graping.
celebrity, influence, this kind of fits, and it's a story.
Oh
about
wow, this is
is-
awful.
Yeah. So, and I don't even know how much we can get into it.
Yeah,
but-
I didn't look too much into this. I don't know the
And
details.
also, we should also just stress, this is an incident with a single accuser. So it's not like, the Kevin Spacey situation where, it's like 9 people long, but the kind of extremeness, basically his nephew is claiming that he's been abused by Ricky for a long time. The representative for Ricky says the idea is not only untrue, it is disgusting. We hope that this man gets the help he so urgently needs. But most of all, we look forward to this awful case being dismissed as soon as a judge gets to look at the facts. So it is totally possible that this guy is just severely emotionally disturbed.
Right.
But
Yeah.
one thing we do know about, S abuse and S trauma early in life is that it does inflict trauma and mental illness onto people, and it can make them much more unstable. Victims of S abuse as children are much more likely to be addicts, to have borderline type symptoms or bipolar type symptoms.
Urges to delete themselves.
They're higher risk for self-deletion. So it was really interesting. And also this is in Puerto Rico, which is a big deal because Puerto Rico takes these accusations very seriously. There are harsher penalties for certain S crimes when the victim is related to the accused.
When
We're
you're
not
saying
sure.
S crimes, you mean sexual crimes?
Sexual crimes. I've adopted a lot of Jeremy from the Quarterings
Yeah.
lexicon
That's why
speak.
we've been trying to say S
S crimes,
instead of-
self-delete.
self-delete.
I try to avoid the K word that means
Right.
removed from life. But I'm not, it doesn't always click, but I feel like it helps a little
I
bit.
forget all the time.
I'm just trying to dodge anything we can do to dodge the algorithmic bullets in the matrix. I'll do
Right.
that.
Yeah, I had not heard of this, and like you said, I mean, I'm going to wait to see more evidence because I have no idea. And whenever there's just a single accuser, and you have no idea, it could be a crazy person trying to get money.
Here's a point too. I thought, as well. Sometimes when these stories come out, typically people will say, well, why did they wait so long? Why didn't they say anything sooner? And I'm just going to bring back this issue of the abuse of boys and how different it is, especially with men. To have been abused, and then when you grow up, I'm sure, and you're a man, you actually start analyzing what happened in the past. There's a lot of shame and guilt and stuff, and it's just men are less likely to want to talk about those sorts of things. So yeah, lots of years I'm sure could go by before an abuser finally decides to say something.
An abused person, that makes
abused person,
sense to me.
decides to say something, but yeah, like Brent said, one accuser. We don't really have a whole lot of details about the Ricky Martin story right now, but
Also, we don't know if there is any hard evidence to back up these allegations. It's a very new story, but I thought it was just relevant.
and fake allegations do happen. I mean, it's a thing, and we
Amber
Heard, and it's horrible because it just all it does is it takes away from the true victims who actually went through stuff, and it makes
people skeptical about everything.
It makes them skeptical. It makes them less likely that they want to just believe things off the bat because people have lied and manipulated and harmed others by making stuff up about them and ruining their reputations and all that, getting them locked up even. So
yeah. Well, thank you guys for hanging out and being willing to talk about all manner of things with me.
Always a pleasure.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Always love to come virtually to Texas.
We love it.
I love hanging out with you guys. I'm always glad to see you. Tell people where they can find you on YouTube or online.
So on YouTube, you guys can find us just by searching for Dangerous Rhetoric. Our icon is a cat being sniffed by Biden and a dog looking on menacingly.
Yeah, and so we are going to ask for subs because last time that worked, actually. We came on here. I think we got a nice boost of like 200 or something. So
Crazy.
So we were very happy and grateful for that. So anyone listening who did follow
Oh.
us, we thank you guys a lot. You know, it's been hard doing this shit and growing it. So we appreciate
You
it.
guys, you're at 807.
We're close. We want to hit that 1,000 mark.
We can get you to 808.
808.
808.
900. 1,000. Let's do it.
Can we get an 808?
Yeah.
It's on that. It was also dangerousrhetoric.com is the
Yes.
website, which will always be there.
It'll be
in
there. So
case
if we ever,
YouTube-
if we ever vanish from like Twitter or YouTube or places like that, like you can go on the website and find a way to contact us with email, and it has the links to all our other stuff. But Dangerous Rhet on Twitter, just Rhet, because we can't fit the whole thing.
RHET.
Yeah. Follow us. Find us.
Woo! We got you to
Spotify,
808.
We're gonna have. We have another. Let's see. What was our last episode? Our last episode was with our friend Simon. Very interesting. We talked about his experiences immigrating from Russia, his perspectives on America, and being a gay dad and things like that. It was a very good conversation. So check that one out. And then our next talk, I think we're talking with a D-trans person.
Yes.
We won't say who yet, but that's going to be a really heavy discussion, I think. Yeah.
And you still have up there, for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, you have some of the behind the scenes footage and videos from when we were at New York City Pride together with Billboard Chris and Alex Stein and Mike Barlow. And
there's a short, like if you don't have a lot of time, there's a really short, like 2.5 minute video with just Alex and Billboard Chris, and then this random dude that comes out of the crowd to engage with them, and they have a little argument.
Oh, well, Carrie talked to that guy for a while too afterward.
Yeah, but then there's the longer, there's like a 17-minute video.
Yeah, with like all the good footage,
with all of everything, and you
together.
get to see us get heckled a bunch. And
that was a fun day. And for people who want to know more about that day, watch our last stream with Carrie. We talked about what we did that day and all of that in depth. Yeah,
it was great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with us in the chat. Thanks for the super chats. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Go check out Dangerous Rhetoric. I think I'm also going to be on Comics Division's show tonight on his Old Men Yelling at Cars or Clouds show. And I'm not sure what time that is, but I'm supposed to be on that show. So if you guys are around tonight, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Later, guys. Have a good day.